Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. In New Hampshire, governors barely get a chance to settle into the job before they find themselves in Bill Gardner's office filling out paperwork to run again. Incumbent Governor Chris Sununu is our guest this morning as he does just that. Sets out on a path for a second term. Thanks for being here, Governor.
Absolutely.
So make the case. Why should voters send you back to the corner office there at the State House for another 2 years?
Well, you know, we've had an incredibly successful first 18 months here. It started with initiatives of balancing the budget, cutting taxes. I know the Democrats said we were going to blow a hole in the budget if we cut taxes, but we knew just the opposite was going to happen. We were going to be able to focus on the economy, focus on deregulation, bringing businesses in, bringing workforce in, and we've been incredibly successful. And then you combine that with what we've done with everything from full-day kindergarten, better access of health care, with veterans returning extra funds back to cities and towns. I mean, every city and town got a check to offset property taxes, which we know can be kind of high in this state. So we focused on the economy, we focused on our priorities, focused on kids, child welfare, mental health. Those systems were complete disasters when we took office. And we're finally getting to the point where we're turning them around, we're making some investments, and we're putting good management in. So again, we're not making false promises or whims or anything like that. We're really just focusing on our success. And I think the people in New Hampshire want this ride to continue.
You have a lot you can point to, but the midterms can often be dominated about how voters feel about the President of the United States. You kind of developed an ad hoc approach to President Trump. You've criticized him and praised him when you felt it's warranted. Should voters in 2018 see you as a strong ally of the President?
Well, I think in terms of what I try to do, I focus on the 603, right? We focus on New Hampshire. We focus on getting it done here. When we need something out of Washington, I'll go down, I'll advocate, I'll establish relationships, make the case, try to get the regulations and flexibility that we need here in the state, whether it's on education or healthcare, whatever it is. But you got to call them kind of like you see them. And I think people understand that, how we do things in New Hampshire. Our success, we don't let our success be defined by the dysfunction of Congress or the dysfunction of Washington or the ugly partisan politics that you see in the rest of the country. Here we do it right, and I think the voters appreciate it, and that's why we're running again.
CBS News reported that a couple of months ago you drew a line in the sand with the administration before the president's visit about the opioid crisis, saying you can't come to this state and use this as a prop, particularly in light of the drug-infested den or alleged drug-infested den comment. They can't do that without some additional funding. Were you worried in that moment that you could face punitive action from the president of the state might not benefit from that kind of standing up against the White House?
No, you look, I have a relationship with the White House where, again, we just tell them exactly what we need. We call it like we see it. And when the idea of the president coming but not really having his staff, at least, didn't really quite have a formulated plan in place, and we said, well, again, you got to have a plan. You got to show action. If you're going to talk about the opioid crisis, we know we have a crisis here in the state. We take it very seriously. We're moving forward on some incredible initiatives, doing things very differently here. And if he was going to come here, we want him to be part of that. So, you know, I try to always look at the positive. I try to, again, provide that, not criticism, but that construct to actually make partnerships happen, public-private sector opportunities, funding opportunities, whatever it is. You got to go down and show the folks in Washington what the needs really are. We're always very clear about it. We don't mince words. My job is to look out for the welfare and being of 1.3 million people. We take it very seriously. We focus on the 603, and we've been successful.
Politics is, at its heart, sometimes just transactional, and obviously you have to relate you to the White House as you have to, but what do you see? Sometimes there's the moral imperative. Right now there are these stories of an administration policy of family separation for people seeking asylum who come to the border. What do you think about that fact that the government has adopted a policy that separates parents from their children as they come to this state, albeit not legally?
I think the policies on immigration, as I can see them up here in New Hampshire, going back to the Obama administration, are flawed. They are. And again, I don't think there's many folks in this country that don't think that Congress needs to do something about immigration on a global scale, make it an even playing field for everyone, making sure that we're not separating children from their families, which is never a recipe for success, and actually codifying a lot of the rules and laws that are somewhat in place but not fully enacted. There are issues down on that border that, again, I can't relate to directly, being the governor of New Hampshire, but when you talk about families and children, of course you want to keep them together. And you got to, again, just get something viable done out of Congress. Congress has been completely ineffectual. I think they all should be fired, frankly. I really do. I don't think any of them have done anything to serve, what we need in this country in terms of viable options out of Washington, D.C. Tax cuts were great. Couldn't get a health care plan done. Again, we need to focus on getting results. That's what we've done in New Hampshire, and if we can be a model for the rest of the country in Washington, so be it.
Last time we had you on the the show was just a couple of days after the Parkland shooting. Since then, we've had another high-profile mass casualty school shooting down in Texas. Are you confident that New Hampshire is doing everything it can to prevent a school shooting from happening here?
So what we've really tried to do is take this not just in terms of one or two different areas, but an all-encompassing approach. We've put our Safe School Task Force together. They've traveled the state. I think they've gotten input from somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 people. I mean, everybody came to the table to give a variety of ideas. That plan is going to be released in the next couple of weeks here. I think it's a great plan. I think it looks at everything from prevention, from mental health, from school resources to security of schools. We've done, I mean, again, before we came into office, this state never put $1 into a Safe Schools program in terms of infrastructure. We've invested $30 million from everything from lockdown doors to detection systems, emergency plans. Those are real investments into virtually every school across the state. We want to continue doing those types of things, but you have to have an all-encompassing approach.
If it's all-encompassing, why can't part of the conversation be about guns?
Again, I think we handle our gun rules and regulations in the state pretty darn well. I've always said that if there is going to be a discussion on it, it's really got to happen at the national level, right? I mean, if every state just takes everything so piecemeal, that's not going to be a long-term recipe of success. I think we do have very good laws in this state. I think when you're looking at safe schools, it's more about the prevention aspects of it. What resources are we not providing the kids? What supports are we not providing? When we see a student that may have an issue, when red flags come up, what are we doing to actually create a system to provide that child that has a problem to make sure he doesn't become a child in crisis? And that's what happens. We've let kids fall into the trap of falling into real crises, whether it's anxiety, whether it's the stresses, environmental stresses that come on to them. We really need to provide a preventative support system, and I think that's what our plan is going to focus on doing.
There's been quite a bit of disappointment among social conservatives that you didn't veto the transgender anti-discrimination bill. What do you say to a Republican who comes up to you and says, gosh, Chris, I like you, but you really disappointed me with this vote?
You know, that bill focuses on making sure that we provide equal opportunity and non-discriminatory practices with housing, with employment. And for me, that's common sense. That's the live free or die. That's the New Hampshire way. And so that's it. We signed the bill. We're moving on.
So on a similar note, your Diversity and Inclusion Council has just released a final report saying that the state could do a better job, that we lag behind other states in terms of sort of honoring other cultures or recognizing the contributions of other ethnicities that are here in New Hampshire. Should the state be doing something about this in its high school curricula? What's the best way to solve this problem?
So a couple things. That was just the first report. So this is going to be an ongoing process. There's going to be more public discussions. We're going to keep, the group is going to keep traveling around the state, getting public input to see what actions need to be taken. Look, I formed the group because I think we all suspected that there was simply more that we could be doing. But again, you can't just focus in one area or the other. It has to be an all-encompassing approach. What resources are we providing at the local level, whether it's on the enforcement side, whether it's in schools, whether it's with families, whether it's just the idea of what we need to bring to our culture to make sure that we're adapting and we're modeling ourselves in a more open and inclusive 21st century. That's why I led the initiative and put the task force together. We're going to keep building on some of the successes we've had, but there's always going to be work to do.
A lot of discussion around bullying lately. Should the state be tightening up any of its anti-bullying rules, laws, regulations in there? What can be done?
I think where the state is in terms of the laws and the rules is in a good place. Where our challenge is the implementation, specifically at the local level, right? So we need to make sure that schools, and particularly this comes into play with schools and kids, particularly with schools, making sure that they know what the laws are, what the rules are, what the response can and should be, what's appropriate, what isn't appropriate, what kind of communication we provide to the parents, what kind of supports we provide the child. So I think in terms of the laws and the rules at the state level, I think we're in fairly good shape. It's about helping the local communities also being able to implement what we've put into place.
You've really prioritized the rejuvenation of the state's mental health system. If re-elected, will you pledge to take the secure psychiatric unit out of the state prison and put it somewhere in what advocates would say would be a more appropriate setting?
That's my plan, and I think we need to do it.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
Do you know where the funding is going to come from? You'll find it, or just...
No, I don't know if it's been, we're putting the budget together now. I don't know if it's been earmarked or identified. We have not done that yet. But look, when you have a priority, you can find the funding, right? When you manage well and you tighten up certain areas, you can find the funding. They said we weren't going to find it for mental health. We weren't going to find it for the child welfare programs, which were an absolute disaster. We found it, right? We made the good management decisions and again, budgeted right, focused on driving our economy, driving the taxes not higher, but actually lower, which increased the overall revenues to the state by giving businesses more flexibility, by allowing them to grow, by deregulating. All of these things led to what you find is one of the most vibrant economies in the country right now. That's how you can provide resources when they're really needed.
Just kind of a stab in the dark here. Will the SPU be moving to the state hospital, and then because there was money appropriated through the omnibus spending bill to get some of those state hospital people into housing?
Yeah, I don't know exactly where it is going to land. I think moving it to the state hospital is an option, but we're going to weigh a few different variables here. But yes, I mean, I think to the crux of your initial question, it has to be moved out of the prisons.
Okay. Governor Chris Sununu, stay with us, and viewers, please stay with us as well. We'll be right back with more from the governor, including a look at his new recovery-friendly workplace initiative.
Close Up has been brought to you by Eastern Bank. Join us for good.
Whether you're headed to the top of the White Mountains or the shores of the Cape, the new Eastern Bank mobile app is right here. Loaded with special features like Touch ID, debit card controls, and easy access anywhere, anytime for people who always have the green light.
It's go time.
Dear staff of Dartmouth Hitchcock Hospital,
I want to take this opportunity to say thank you.
Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
I couldn't have made it without you.
Thanks for saving my life.
We will never forget the gift you gave us that day.
With all my heart, thank you for my life.
On behalf of everyone here at Dartmouth Hitchcock, thank you for allowing us to share in your life's most important moments. For us, that's more powerful than medicine.
Time is running out. The end is near. It's the final 8 days of the La-Z-Boy Furniture Gallery store closing for renovation sale. And it's our largest sales event in history. Save up to 50% off all remaining inventory. Everything must be sacrificed. All furniture and accessories must be sold. Don't miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save up to 50% off everything in the store. Quality sofas, sectionals, recliners, and more must be liquidated. Nothing will be held back. Hurry in. It's the final 8 days of the closing for renovation at La-Z-Boy Furniture Galleries.
Funding for closed captioning is sponsored by Orr and Reno, bringing sound judgment and a practical approach to New England's legal challenges for over 70 years.
Welcome back to Close Up, where we continue our conversation with Governor Chris Sununu. So one of your top priorities has been the Recovery-Friendly Workplaces Initiative. Didn't pass on its own, but it came through in the spending bill as a grant program rather than a tax credit. If I own a small business and I want to get involved with the Recovery-Friendly Workplaces Initiative, how do I do that, and how much money can I get from the state?
So let's back up a little bit. What Recovery-Friendly Workplaces really does is provide tools and resources to local employers within the state to help them understand what's available to them when an employee comes to them and might have an issue with addiction or they're going through recovery. We want to make sure that the employers are not just part of the conversation, but really part of the support system. So there is some money out there, but it's not just about the money we're going to provide to employers. A lot of times it's just the training. What recovery centers are available in your area? How do you keep an employee employed? And at 2.6% unemployment, businesses need to keep every employee that they can. It's better for the business, it's better for the employee. So it's a more profitable operation. It's something that we really started up at Waterville Valley when I was up there prior to being governor, and we're really taking statewide. Now, we had no idea that it was going to get so successful. I think Rhode Island has adopted it. We have national employers that are looking at it on a national scale. So we have some resources coming in. So we have some folks at the state level to help with getting out to the various communities, out to the various employers, letting